What the fuck is this?
Isn't it obvious?
That's the new intro?
Boom.
Welcome to Isn't It Obvious? I'm your host for this week's, days, months, years episode, Micah, with Philip and Sera. And my topic for today is... Isn't it obvious that policing should be a mandatory duty and there should be no actual career police officers? It's constantly cycling who enforces the law. And you can reapply, but you can only have a certain stint, then you need time off.
Okay, well, I hate the first part of your premise, but I kind of like the second. I do think there should be mandatory time off as an officer. I do think, it's a very high-stress job, and you can't put a person through high stress like that as a constant thing. There needs to be a break. There has to be, mandatory vacation. That's paid, right?
No.
Oh.
No, you have, you're like an elected official. You have, a 4-year stint as a cop, and then you're off for a time. And then you can reapply for another 4-year stint.
And this is like public responders, right? This is okay.
Not like detectives.
Yeah, I was going to say detectives.
More work goes into detectives. People that actually
time.
interact with civilians, that should not be a permanent position. If you are out there...
Detectives interact with civilians.
In terms of
you mean
pulling people over for speeding.
Potential violent or confrontational things? Okay. I think it's fine if you want to be a career officer, because it's not really a job that I would want, just like you said, mandatory. I don't think that's a job I'd want to force anyone into ever. I don't think there are people with the mindset that would be a good or helpful thing.
But then if they don't have that mindset, they go through the training that raises red flags, would they not get the help they need?
No, I'm talking about this type of... I would not be a good person to put in a high stress situation, like a domestic dispute. I do not want to, I could not be involved in that. I couldn't get between people like that. That's not something I could physically or emotionally do. It's just not a thing I'm capable of. So making that a mandatory thing for me would be a bad idea. I don't think that would be a good plan. Traffic stops, also don't think. You have to be highly trained to maneuver your car. Some people are really good at that, right? Some people would be... No, for real, though. Cops go through training to, driving training to, weave through traffic and stuff. I wouldn't want to do that. I'm not comfortable doing that. I don't think there are a lot of people who would be. Some people would find it fun, right? That would be they get their rocks off being an adrenaline.
Yeah, but do you want a police officer that has that type of mentality?
I think there's a nice balance that we would in theory want to try and find. But I also think I would rather have someone who enjoys what they're doing versus someone who's terrified of what they're doing. Because people make poor decisions when they are afraid.
And people make poor decisions when they're too jacked up.
True, but I feel like there's, again, a happy medium. We could there can be a caution without being afraid, right? And there can be the adrenaline high, but being able to hold it together. That's what you'd like to aim for as an officer. You don't want just some random person doing this.
It's not you still go through the training to be a police officer.
Just because you have training doesn't mean you're qualified.
But if you can't handle it during training, then you're not put into the field.
So you would be shunted off to maybe public service. Some people who have the right attitude and the right mental whatever state, and also enjoy driving fast and whatever, can go into the police officer training, while other people go into public works and saving cats and trees and whatever.
So the question then is, you can only serve a 4-year time, and then you're done with your term, and then you could reapply. And there'd be maybe a lottery system, and then you can get the job again.
You'd reapply, but it would have to be so many years after you had that. So you had, I become a cop in 2020.
Okay.
Well, how many years?
4 years, let's say.
Let's say 4 years.
Between?
No, well,
4 years of service with how much mandatory between?
That would be, I think, at least a year.
Okay.
Okay, well, a year is a long time.
Uh-huh.
What are you going to do in the meantime?
I assume
for
that
a
there
year.
will be other jobs. And
for a year?
Police officers are well compensated,
but they wouldn't be paid.
Put in my police service.
But they're not paid for that year.
No.
So
are you spending all of the money you're making as a cop over 4 years?
Maybe.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but maybe you got a lot of kids. You don't know.
People do live paycheck to paycheck.
Some people do. Like, so.
Sure.
So what? You're supposed to like penny pinch for a year until you can reapply, or do you get
or
like
get another job?
Yeah, and for a year until like to hold over. That's not fair to the company, first of all, that you applied for. If you're just going to go back to being an officer, or is it like, do you do like
super red flag then if you're an officer too? What did you do for the past 4 years? Oh, I was an officer. Oh, and you're applying for being a paper salesman or something. It's like, yeah, we're gonna pass.
How's that red flag?
Because training is expensive.
Yeah, they'd rather just they don't want someone who's gonna stick around for a year. They'd like at least maybe 2.
Honest question. What percentage of our economy requires little to no training in terms of anyone can pick this job up in a week?
I mean,
most jobs,
most non-technical jobs.
Mm-hmm. So nothing that requires like higher education or the ability to speak a different language, including coding.
But those don't pay very well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
but they can. And if you spent 4 years on a police force, that requires that entails, a whole bunch of suppositions that usually would be true. You follow orders, you know laws, you respect a hierarchy because you have to respect a bit of a chain of command, even though the higher ups would end up being more bureaucrats than police officers.
You know what I think would be a better idea is if they're still an officer, but there is like you said, a year mandatory period where they do like something else within the department that is not.
Yeah.
So they're still on the payroll and they're still but they're not doing the exact same job and they're not doing the high stress stuff. So there's like a year where they're doing desk work or they're doing other like civic duty stuff that police officers do that maybe that isn't like involved in apprehending criminals or scoping out, crime scenes or whatever.
That's what they do for special victims unit. There's only a certain amount of time that they're allowed to be to do their job and get rotated out. Yeah. Because no one wants this fucking job.
That NBC show's been on for like 18 years and it's the same 8 people.
Well,
they solve all of New York sex crimes.
Not all of them, but they
solve a lot of them.
And they did make a comment about that in that show. Right.
It's God, I've never watched a single episode.
Maloney, you've been here for a while. Like, normally people get in and out as soon as they can because they.
But that seems like that's an option that they get in and out, not some sort of mandatory thing.
Most people want out.
Okay.
No, they don't want this job. It's a fucking terrible job.
It's awful.
Who would want this job?
Yeah, you see the worst of humanity.
No, I would just. I mean, I would.
And the worst victims too.
Yeah, I understand alcoholics. If you have the job like that, it would be surprising you don't drink. Yeah. Right? Like that's a shitty job. Or, just do.
Wait, alcoholic is a job?
Well,
you wish. You know what? It is too. Actually. There are jobs that you just drink.
Somalia.
Wait, yeah, No, that's not just drinking. Like you have to be able to sell your horrible fucking wine.
I mean, yeah, okay, it's selling and drinking. But...
Please tell me where I can volunteer to be the town drunkard and get paid for it.
Well,
I mean, it seemed to work really well.
There's a mayor in Canada that wasn't his.
Was it
Rob Ford?
But he also did crack and shit. I don't do that.
Who is
no, it's kind of part of the job though.
Are you talking about the
Diogenes? No,
the Wellington Wizard?
No, I'm talking about the guy who
Diogenes?
Diogenes?
No,
what the hell was his name?
Wasn't his job.
No, but he was like the town drunkard who like masturbated in public and just had a time, and people were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" But also like, "Okay, you got some good points here about life."
He used to go with
but he was also like the son of an incredibly wealthy merchant who died, and like he had that's why he was able to do that, because he would just like throw money at people. You're talking about the one Alexander the Great visited?
Yeah.
And he was told like Alexander the Great visited Diogenes in his tub, and Diogenes told him to move because he was in his light.
I don't think it was a tub. Well, you mean his barrel or whatever that he was wearing?
Yeah,
or
whatever.
Sackcloth. I don't know. I thought he was like in the street.
He was bathing at the time.
I thought he was in the street or something, and he was in the way.
Okay, I have
whatever.
The favorite quote I
doesn't
have
fucking matter
is that the word cynic is associated with being an asshole, but back in the day it's associated with the Latin word for dog, because Diogenes is he was the lord of the dogs, right, or something.
He just
that's all his friends were, I guess.
Hung out with all the stray dogs,
and he was such an asshole to everybody, because he was so cynical. That's where it came from, because he's that much of a dick. And I'm like, good for him, man. But yeah, that wasn't his job, though. Like, he did have a wealthy...
He made his job.
It wasn't a job.
He was volunteering. He was doing a community service.
It was a community
masturbating
service.
To people. And
it was really the future community service.
Yeah.
Because no one probably at the time really appreciated his genius.
A lot of kids learned a few things.
Maybe.
The overhand grip, that's new.
Oh, gross. Anyway.
Guys, overhand grip.
What the hell do you mean overhand grip? Like, you know that? You turn it around.
Turn it around, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And 8 new fetishes were born.
Good for him.
I think I just threw up a little. Anyway.
So, my thought of this is that...
No, just get out of it. Ugh. All right, enough of this.
My thought of this having a police force that you rotate amongst the departments so you're not so stressed out. Like I think that would be nice. Like so in one case you don't have to answer in domestic disputes, be getting yelled at by a bunch of degenerates, and you're just there.
And it's the same fucking people like weekend after weekend, and you're just like, could you guys just figure your shit out already, please?
I grew up in a neighborhood that was fairly nice, I guess. As a suburban princess, but there was one area that was 3 cop calls a day, just one apartment complex.
Yeah,
and that's like 99% of all of the police calls were because of that spot. And there was like a sexual assault that occurred on that street, and it's not that far from like, I don't know, a park. And so like this is a really shitty place, and you're a cop that has to go there, and you have to deal with people. Everyone hates people,
and not just people, but like the worst people.
The worst people. You're dealing with people typically at the worst point of their lives over and over again. And that's at a good suburb like of the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. It's really weird because I don't really have a lot of sympathy for cops because I feel like their unions and their ability to go above the law.
It's the most successful union in the country.
Yeah, it's actually the reason why I don't like unions sometimes. In addition to that, like they make a lot of false testimonies that they never get held accountable for. And obviously it got to a point where riots occur on the street because people are so fed up with it. But on the other hand, you have to deal with a lot of shitty people. If it
doesn't, what was that? The abyss, you stare into the abyss stares back. It's not a surprise to me that cops end up being shitty people because that's who they're dealing with every day.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't the mandatory aspect of this hypothetical lead to greater civic response to law and law enforcement?
No, I don't. You mean mandatory for random people, like of the public to have to serve? No, absolutely not. Fuck that noise.
I think it might be better for them to to have like a ride along. Like I agree that there's got to be more exposure to the police enforcement system that we have today. Like a lot of people like me just make up bullshit and just say, oh, I don't like cops because they gave me a ticket one time. But in reality, I go to these open houses for firefighters and police officers because you're trying to teach kids that if you have a problem, you're supposed to go to these people that are dressed up, that could be scary, right? A firefighter's uniform is scary for a kid. A policeman with a gun hanging from his belt could be scary for a kid. So
or anyone who's not white.
So you have to train your kids to be like, oh, these are the good people, and you have to kind of say that because you don't want to tell them police are bad. What else can you do as a parent, right? Maybe you can tell them things like,
unfortunately, most
black households have very different conversations interacting with police.
I understand. Yeah. As a person
very
of color, I have to choke on my words. Be like, these are supposed to be the good guys, right? But
but be cautious.
But one having a rotating roster and a higher pool of which to draw talent from start to break down some of those bonds.
I agree that if you had exposure from the community at large that say, hey, you know what, you're going to be going to the system and you're going to observe for, like a civilian review board, and you get to be an auditor or you get to ride along from officers and get to see what they do.
Cyber ninja now.
And just see what they have to deal with. You probably would have a lot more of an idea about the shit they have to go through. On top of that, because officers are being observed by a civilian auditor, right?
They're probably going to be on their
They're going to probably
right?
have to be on their behavior.
So, highly disagree.
You don't think so?
You've had body cams as the status quo for the better part of a half decade now?
I think body cams are easy to forget, though.
Sure, but you see times where higher officers come to a scene where shit happened and they signal to turn those off because they still have the prerogative when that is running. And because of that, then they discuss shit and how they're going to portray a crime scene. So that false testimony is now being coordinated amongst multiple police officers with their cameras off when it should be on. Or, what's more insidious, is when the cameras are on, but they turn off the recording of the audio, so you don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
There was that case, I think that didn't happen too long ago, that really nails your point. They stole the suspect's phone, but they didn't realize it was recording. Mm-hmm. And then during this discussion, they were talking about how best to frame them.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, fuck you guys. But also, a civilian review board with, every once in a while, there's, hey, guess what? This person is coming on the ride with you guys, right? it may be better so that there's a two birds with one stone sort of thing. One, a civilian person that has oversight has to sign some legal document that says that they're not going to report that they saw.
And they're also not part of this, brotherhood of cops who are in the union, who are... Blue Lives Matter. I mean, there could be a civilian, but less likely.
Politicize that position.
Yeah, but let's assume that they're still an outsider, so they're not necessarily going to be as influenced. Right.
It could be very similar to like jury duty, where not every person could do it with a criminal history of, like, let's say that the person has a history of murdering people and they enter this program, right? Like, obviously you're not
qualified.
All right, so no cops can be in this program? Cool.
Yeah, but yes, right. No cops in the civilian review board.
Yep.
But like,
or if you've ever served as a cop, you can't be part of the civilian review board either.
I could see it as a useful way of saying, look, why don't you join, like an audit, so to speak, just like the FDA has, or the Federal Aviation Association, and say, look, we're going to just check your shit. And it may not have to be an official inspector because those guys are crooked. It's going to be people that are,
like jury duty.
Like jury duty.
They're randomly selected.
And they could go, they can have a leg up if they want to join the enforcement agency, so they have a higher chance of entering an academy or, whatever 1 year, 2 year training program, so they can also be a grunt or whatever they call them. I could see that being useful because I don't fucking trust cops.
And you shouldn't, because clearly...
Well,
no,
it's weird when you have a state-supported agency that has the right to murder with, like,
in public,
80%
with witnesses.
retention rate.
With witnesses.
Yeah.
There was a study done by the New York Times where they looked through body cam footage of the last 5 years or something and found 450-ish instances of police shooting unarmed, non-threatening people. Of those 400, how many of those officers were actually punished? Wild Senator.
I would say 50.
50?
Yeah.
Less than that.
Okay,
he asked
Sarah,
this question to me as well. I think it was four individuals, was it? Or it was like less than 1%?
5.
Like 1%?
One of those was
5.
Derek Chauvin.
Oh my god.
The most public.
Yeah.
I was
Or
off by
something
a
like
factor of multiple of 10?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. That's the enforcement rate, and that's what the New York Times found. That is not what because not every precinct uses cams. Not every precinct has those type of recording messages.
Especially in small towns where
Exactly.
there's
it's
not a budget.
expensive. Yeah.
Law enforcement is based off what the city and the municipality decides, right? So there's not a really good way to collect statistics because I'm guessing it's like apples and oranges. Yeah, I think that there's a problem with, especially in Minneapolis, with the law enforcement that we have today.
It's so bad.
But at the same time, not to victim blame, but like, I don't like going to Minneapolis. I mentioned this before, especially at night, because I just don't like the fact that there's so many fucking one-ways. And it doesn't, like, if I want to go from one place to the other, like, Madison makes sense because, like, there's a Capitol building there, it's the tallest one, and you can kind of go where you need to go. But in Minneapolis, it's just a shitty design city with one-ways that don't make sense. And then I'm going to get a ticket because I'm an asshole driver that is going too fast or too slow or ran a red light because I wasn't paying attention. And then I get a ticket.
Well,
and they're going to be
really
like...
need to do
Or you
alternating
go up the
one-ways.
wrong way.
Or you go the
Yeah,
wrong
one
way,
way.
which I've done
Like,
because I'm an asshole.
Everything from
idiot.
downtown to uptown to all that stuff should just be alternating one-ways. That's all they should be. And the fact that they're two-ways with how thin those roads are is absurd.
Yeah.
Because that shit was built in the 50s where it's like, 30% people have cars. They'll make it work. They have alleys, right?
Shitty design.
People respect the road. No.
they
It's
fucking
it's
don't.
shit infrastructure that has not changed.
So...
Honestly, changing Hennepin from a one-way to a two-way, like, I don't know
Bad
when they
idea.
changed that. I have hated driving downtown ever since.
Yes.
It was nice where First Ave was a
Yeah.
one-way going south. Hennepin, one-way going
Yes.
north. That is much better for traffic.
Yes.
I love
It's smooth.
Yeah.
It's...
You split it, and you just deal with the intersections, and it's fine.
I-
But no, everything's gotta be goddamn two-way.
Yeah.
I love Minneapolis, but there's only certain sections of it that make sense. Only the places that make sense.
Yeah, everything that's
Everything-
not downtown or uptown.
Yeah, basically.
Beyond that, it's okay. Not everything makes sense, but it's like, that's fine.
There's like 2 streets that I like. All right, right by
and
the
one
river.
of those is pedestrian.
Yeah. Or
Nicollet Mall's nice.
Nicollet Mall.
Nicollet Mall is really nice.
You got
Yeah.
buses going through every now and then,
Yeah.
but it's just nice to walk on.
Yeah. So basically Minneapolis is a shit show just on a
But
civil
also,
engineering level.
St. Paul. St. Paul's kind of a shit show too.
Oh,
Yeah.
St. Paul's a shit show too.
You have like
Yeah.
weird Tangletown near the XL, and it's like I don't. How are there 18 different lights in this? Oh shit! There are like 8 streets merging here.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's like weird
I have to
angled.
go off. Like, oh jeez, you have to go a mile to go on this weird ass fucking exit, and there's just like 1-story houses, and be like, this is the way to get to the hospital. Like, why are you doing this to us? Ugh. Anyway,
terrible idea.
Yeah.
It's like infrastructure is hard.
The reason why I bring up infrastructure and shitty civil engineering is that cops weren't originally meant to be traffic cops. Like, I think I mentioned this a way back, where when officers had to deal with this shit, they were actually protesting that this is a bad idea, that they're actually there to fight crimes and not write tickets. And now they, of course, love writing tickets because
it's easy.
But also they make it where so many budget cuts, like, all right, we're not going to pay cops, but hey, you can give tickets out and you get most of that money back.
Yep. So I feel like cops are just universally despised because people get tickets and they don't want to pay, and they should get tickets.
I feel that their position in our society has been incredibly obfuscated by the power they're given and how that power is used upon the citizen. And that is not squared.
Well, and how the fact that they're not doing what they're like, okay, yeah, they're making traffic stops, but they're not really solving the problem. Like, they're really not solving any problems.
Yeah, you're not solving speeding. You're just
collecting money.
Yeah. You're collecting money from the one person who stopped and pulled over, as opposed to someone else who causes a chase that can lead to more violent incidences.
Yep.
So you're banking on the participation of the person being pulled over, with that being the understanding that's what you do in this situation. But so many situations have had where someone followed through. Fernando Castillo followed through with that and pulled over for the officer and was shot 6 times in the stomach. And when you have instances like that, then anyone who has any bit of doubt because of a bad interaction with a police officer is going to be like, oh shit, that shoots a hole in my argument. All right, never mind. I need to stop now.
Well, the problem is they don't do what you want them to. Like they show up, right, to a domestic dispute, but 9 times out of 10, you know what happens?
They leave without anything happening.
Exactly. They just leave, and the situation festers, and they're just called back again.
Well, they're not
in a couple of days to a week.
Yeah,
until someone dies.
It's really weird why cops are, like you guys are mentioning, because I think we had a discussion before about defunding the police. But one that, like, and you guys mentioned that it was like the Swiss Army knife to build a house. And I thought about that. I was like, fuck, they're right.
Give them specialized jobs.
Everyone fucking hates the cops because you only interact with them when you're having a shitty day. Mm-hmm. Like, I got into an accident. Oh, I got to call the cops. Like, I don't ever see a cop and be like, hey, it's the cops. Like, this is great. They're going to give me donuts. Like,
I'm good.
It's always a shitty time. I think that's my reaction to also nurses and doctors. Yeah, like, I'm going there because I have to. Like, but if you have a checkup, it's not so bad, right? So maybe you don't have an association with them and pain. Dentist is a common example of everyone hates because it's all, no one ever fucking...
No one flosses. And then they get shamed.
Yeah, and then they get metal.
And then they get poked and prodded.
You've been a little light on your flossing lately.
Yeah, you're just hemorrhaging out of your mouth.
Right. No one likes them. Yeah. And they do a great service.
Screams out of your blood curdling mouth.
Excuse me, what was that? Sorry, she drills one down.
Tears coming out of my eyes. I really don't like them, even though they provide a great service, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like taxes are like that too. One of the Republican standpoints is that they didn't want people to have W-2, your taxes already done for you. So obviously the IRS knows how much you owe because they fucking tell you at the end of the time you're done writing it up. And they say you owe us more. You're like, if you already knew how much I owe you, then just fucking give me that number and I will write it to you, right? Like you already know the answer to the stupid math equation that I have to pay somebody to do for me because I'm too stupid with math. And then I give it to you guys, and you're like, your accountant was wrong. You owe more. Like, wait, you knew the answer? Just give me the fucking answer. Why do I... And the reason why
Then you can't get away, with, well, what about this, donation that I made?
Oh, yeah, okay, so...
That you didn't know about.
Yes. No, but it's also, but what you claim on your taxes and how that's backed up is different, and it's not the IRS knows, but what you claim. So if you're claiming a type of deduction,
yeah.
First of all, I don't claim shit. Like, I'm a very simple man with very simple needs.
But you own a home. You have a homestead thing. Like, you have
those kind of taxes. It's all very,
I hope you claim that homestead tax credit.
Okay,
because if you don't, I'm going to tell you
homestead,
must.
I do 2 or 3 things that are very simple. I don't claim I use this toilet paper for business purposes for this podcast. Like, no, it's just very simple.
Wait, cookie. You can do that?
Yes. It's a very simple cookie cutter submission that I'm sure many millions of people have. And the reason why Republicans didn't want to have a system like they have in Germany and Canada and Netherlands and and Norway and Sweden and Japan. It's because they want to make taxes painful for people. They want to associate taxes with pain. And then when people say taxes and raises money, they don't think about, oh, well, the streets are going to be better or the cops are going to be better funded. No, they think about, oh, fuck those guys, which is exactly how I feel. So cops and the tax people and nurses sometimes, dentists, they all have the association with pain. And I've never actually had a routine checkup with a cop just to be like, hey, how are you doing, buddy? Everything's great.
Hey, follow the laws.
Have a donut. Except for Night to Unite.
Which is one small thing that they do annually. The Ramsey County, goes around into the neighborhoods and does the volunteer, get to know your neighbors kind of thing, get to know your cops.
But is that not also just state propaganda to really benefit a lot of poor publicity?
It is that.
That said government institution has been portraying carte blanche for many years.
I mean, it is that, but it also does give you an opportunity to meet, the people who are patrolling your streets. So, I mean, it's both of those things. And it can be two things at once.
There absolutely needs to be reformation to how we...
I love it. Sorry.
have a state-based law enforcement. One of the things is they don't get a union. It is not a for-profit thing. What they do is not meant to be a profit. If police act at a loss, they act at a loss. It's a service that we have...
like the Postal Service.
Or firefighters.
Yeah, that we just fund because it's necessary.
Because maybe mass communication between a citizenry helps a system and a country grow and function. And maybe these things should be important and we really need to change the conversation.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's not citizens versus police. It's not that type of adversarial. It's they are providing a service, and we should not look at them as a for-profit venture.
I mean, if we could treat anyone in the service industry like they were human beings, I think we could do that. Maybe.
Yeah, but the service industry is for profit, so no, you fucked up my latte. I'm not paying anything. Well, I don't care that my bill is $400.
There's a problem here too with if you meet people, they are actually just terrible people. I worked at retail instead of working at the restaurant. I feel like as a suburban princess, you had two choices, two tech paths. Retail
or retail.
And I chose retail because it seemed less dirty.
I chose food retail, which is grocery store.
Freetail?
Oh, Freetail. Freetail.
That sounds way better.
This sounds way better.
I cleaned. I didn't have the suburban princess options.
Oh, you didn't have the suburban?
I went straight to custodial.
Oh, that's
very fun. I lost a lot of weight, actually.
Okay, well...
It's hard
work, what happens when you walk 4 miles in a night.
Okay, that actually probably doesn't sound so bad. Because when you're in the retail tech tree, I guess, you have to deal with the shittiest customers ever. And you slowly realize that it's not that they're the shittiest customers. Every one of them are kind of just shitty. I would say maybe 1 out of 10 are just really shitty, rude people.
So Phil, what I'm hearing is people suck.
People suck.
Yeah.
And
sorry, that wasn't
cops have to deal with these people, man. This is fucking terrible for them.
They have to deal with them with whatever poorly educated and whatever interactions they're dealing with second or third hand.
God, I'm dealing with them saying, hey, it's 30% off this novel t-shirt. They're dealing with them with, hey, look, you've been
this
stabbed.
says I get it for free. You wrote that on a newspaper. Yeah, but this is your logo in the background, right? I wrote it on your, that means you have to give it to me.
I don't know if this is true, but I don't want to blame...
I'm 1 day past the expiration date on this coupon. Are you sure you
can't honor it? Yes, in 1973!
I'm sure you can't honor it for me?
I don't know what...
This is Kohl's with a C!
Alright, I don't know what the problem is with the States, but I often made the comparison that I would hate to live in South Korea. When I visit them, I feel like it's a terrible place because it's just capitalism gone wild there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the one nice thing that they do is that you can walk the streets and you can feel safe at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
For me. When I went to Shanghai, it was the same feeling too. 2 a.m., feel safe.
Are you sure that's not just because you're in a foreign place where you don't really understand what the crime
Could be, yeah. But
is there?
I also had that feeling in Netherlands and in Montreal. I have that feeling in some places, Asian countries more so than others, and probably because I'm ignorant. But I went with coworkers, and they're like, "Yeah, this place just feels nice, feels safe." We went to this nice mountain in Montreal area that oversees the city at 11 o'clock at night. And it feels safe. So the only place that it didn't feel safe in South Korea, I mentioned, is the U.S. Army military bases. That feels sketchy as fuck. You do not feel safe there. even though I can understand them and I can talk to them and I'm a U.S. citizen, I felt like this is like, haha, I'm in danger. Like, this doesn't feel good. And that's a feeling I have a lot of the times in, like, there's two things. One is, are they policing different? That they're people? Or are they training their regular civilians different so they're not complete shitheads? Like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, it seems like one part of me wants to blame the victim here, our society, right? That we have shitty cops. So like, well, we just have a shitty society. The other one, too, is that, well, maybe we should replace the cops. It's like, it might be better just to replace the society at times. Like, the people, the cops are almost...
Replacing cops away better.
The cops...
It's easier.
It's
easier.
No, it's better. It's better.
People are terrible.
They are.
Like, people are terrible.
Yeah, but replacing the system we have now is better. Because the system we have now is so utterly broken.
But the society is broken.
Yeah.
So replace the society.
Sure, and then you still have shitty policing. We're now an authoritarian system.
No, because the policing would also go... It's like...
No,
the baby with the bathwater. Yeah.
Have you seen how effective their unions are? No.
They're effective.
It is easier to think of a world without capitalism.
Well,
than it
I
is
disagree.
To think of a world without police.
I respectfully, I don't respectfully disagree with you that if you were to dismantle the society, that everything else would absolutely go with them.
How do you enforce the laws in the new society? Police.
I mean,
so you have to have the holdovers of the police because then you need those grunt workers in order to enforce what the new rules are.
No, I mean, I'm just saying we should just kill humanity. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's really all I'm saying.
The lizard strike again.
Humanity is doing that well enough on its own. Thank you.
Hey, don't give away the game.
65 million years for this.
But I do.
It's true.
I do have a fun anecdote with your Montreal comment of how safe it is in shitting on stupid alt-right podcasters. So, Steven Crowder, who's just a beautiful human being of horribleness, was having a conversation with Jordan Peterson, another beautiful human being of horribleness, where...
Excellent specimen.
Just 10 out of 10, no complaints.
Postmodernism. Sorry.
Words. Anyway, Crowder was talking about how he was mugged in Montreal in response to Jordan Peterson being like, Montreal is great. You can walk around there at 2 a.m. and not fear anything. So Crowder was like, yeah, no, I was mugged there twice. And Jordan Peterson's response was, really? That's embarrassing.
What an asshole. But that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Is like, you might, whenever I've gone to like foreign countries, I've always felt super safe.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's American arrogance.
And I think that's what it is. It's just American
I was like
arrogance.
that in Spain and like, I was in sketchy places in Spain.
To be perfectly honest, I'm also a woman, so I just don't go out by myself. Like, it's just my rule. I just don't trust humanity at all because they're terrible, as we've discussed. But like, it
and accepted and agreed.
I mean, but like it always, like, American arrogance maybe is what we can call it. I always felt safer where it's, where I'm not familiar, like where I don't know where I am. Like even in Chicago, like I didn't feel like I was gonna get mugged, which is weird. But like this was, it was like early days in college, and I went to Chicago as like a school trip or something with choir, and I went down and I just decided to kind of go off on my own for a bit, like a moron. Nothing happened, clearly. Although I did get like weirdly hit on by some weird drunk guy coming out of a theater, but that was the extent of it. But I didn't feel like I was going to be mugged or attacked. Whereas, like, if I were downtown Minneapolis right now, I'd feel like I was going to get carjacked immediately.
Yeah, we have, okay, well, to defend my point, Jordan Peterson is an asshole. Second of all, I don't
How does that defend your point?
Defend my point is...
No, Jordan Peterson agreed with you.
Well, he's also an asshole. Oh, that's embarrassing. Right?
He's a horrible person,
right.
But so is Steven Crowder. They're both horrible people, but that response between two horrible people that are supposed to be on the same side is what's very humorous.
It is. I don't really feel safe in a lot of U.S. cities. That's, so it's like, well, is it because it's, you're in a different setting? When I go to Chicago, I don't really feel safe there. And I don't really I don't know, Seattle didn't really feel safe. A lot of homeless people, right? L.A. especially.
L.A.,
Yeah.
Unless it's broad day, like even then.
I don't know what it is. Something about, maybe you're right, like the visual cues about, hey, this is dangerous is a lot more prominent in American cities.
I was going to say, there was certain areas in Chicago that I'm like, I should probably turn around now.
Right.
Like, getting sketch now. So there was that.
But when I went to other cities, like, I don't know, I think there's two reasons why. One is because we're aware of what the danger signs are. Two, the cities of the places I mentioned have much stricter gun control laws. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't...
Less likely to be shot shot. In the
Less
street.
likely to be shot.
Or threatened at gunpoint.
It's not safe in the sense that, like, there's a lot of pickpocketers in Shanghai. Like, for especially foreigners. There's the comment that...
Same thing in France. In Paris, there are a lot of pickpocketers in Paris.
Yeah.
That specifically capitalize. Any high
tourist.
touristy area, they capitalize on American tourists.
Right. So, like, but as far as, like, you know, money or life type of feeling, it's different. So, I don't know if they're doing their better job with, again, it could be biased, but, like, these other cities in other countries, do they have a populace that is not as shitty? I don't know. Do they have cops that are not as shitty? No. Right? If people are always shitty everywhere, then that theory doesn't hold true. They must be shitty there too. But I don't feel like it, so I'm not sure.
I think the guns make a difference for sure.
True. If you're in London, you know that a cop who's in a bright yellow, white, and blue uniform doesn't have a means of lethality on, but they can be in contact with those who do if something violent is happening.
Right.
So that may be a good start.
But the issue is that cops here must be armed because the populace are armed, right? Like, there's a difference of the theory of threat.
Yeah.
In Japan and South Korea, it's really hard to get armed, right?
So what we need is our police officers to be a new class of knight. Give them the greatest armor. Put them in fucking Gundams.
So I'm thinking
I'm trying to end the episode.
we should just have tasers. That should just be it.
No.
Not that you can't.
It's still lethal.
It is potentially lethal for sure. But like, there should be like training and like you have to go through a specific program to be able to carry them. Same with like guns, right? So. I mean, you hope.
Cops, yeah. Very light training on guns.
No,
you would think they have good gun training, like, right?
No,
yes. You aim for center mass because that's the easiest way to debilitate anyone who may be a threat. We're not going to tell you what a threat is. We're just going to tell you the best way to debilitate them.
I swear to God.
Okay, you know what? It's fine. It's fine.
The argument here isn't...
Humanity gone. Just gone. Just
Yeah.
gone.
Hey, give it 150 years. We won't be here.
Only 150?
Fuck. I hope it's that quick.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, alright, thanks.
Thanks, Mom. This is all you're doing.
Lizards unite!